The Executive Mayor of Tshwane, Cilliers Brink, has been briefing the media on the city's current financial status and the progress made in efforts to try and stabilise the city's finances and improve revenue collection. The nation's capital has been plagued by financial mismanagement and infrastructure challenges. SABC News reporter Nozintombi Miya attended that briefing and joins us live. Very good afternoon to Nozintombi. Just give us some highlights that emerged from that briefing.
Thank you so much, Nzinga. And you're quite right. In this briefing that came out, the mayor of Tshwane gave a very candid view of the city's finances. And he's saying that the city's finances are in a crisis and that he and his team are doing what they can to try and stem the tide of financial losses. However, on the ground, the people are saying, is the mayor and the mayoral team doing enough to deal with the problems, the real life challenges of access to water, access to alternative electricity? Are they doing enough to deal with those issues and to be able to provide those basic services to the communities here in Tshwane? And the mayor here of Tshwane joins me now. Thank you so much for joining me, Mayor. You said in your briefing that you had spoken to the Premier of Gauteng around some of the challenges that you as Tshwane have experienced, but you've had blanket silence from him.
So the question that you asked was about support to the victims, the families who have lost members to cholera in Hammanskraal. And the indication which I gave to the Municipal Council and confirmed here today was that the city is giving support to the families. Unfortunately, it's a long process. We're going to go through all sorts of checks and balances on our side, but amounts are being given to the families. Those commitments aren't just being made, they're being followed up. What I did add in response to your question was to say that we'd like for Gauteng to top up the contributions that we can make to the families. I have written to the Premier, and unfortunately, we've not had a response. And it would be very good to get that response so that our own abilities can be augmented by what Gauteng can provide.
Mayor, in our conversation, the mayor's office the Premier's office had said that there had been meetings, an intergovernmental meeting that took place in June, and you did not attend.
So a letter was written to the Premier, 3 letters in fact. If he has to have a meeting in order to respond to a simple request, I think there's more problems in his office than just scheduling meetings. So my preoccupation is not to attend meetings. The Premier can phone me at any time, or he can respond to the letters already written to him.
Is this how we ended up in the situation in Tshwane, where we're having a financial crisis, where it seems as though political fighting has really limited the city's ability to effectively deal with the service delivery challenges in the area?
No, I think you've made that connection. I haven't made that connection at all. In fact, I have a very strong relationship with the National Department of Water, National Treasury, and all of the parties that are trying in earnest to address the problem of Roodepoort. As we've explained in detail, it's an issue that has been left for so long that it's become very expensive and very complicated to solve. The most immediate problem is getting the finances, getting the funding to complete the upgrade. And we know, we've said, we won't be able to do it without partnership with other spheres of government. And certainly I've made every attempt, as have my colleagues, in order to build those relationships.
Yeah. The Roodepoort issue is part of a broader problem around the water, around water access, as well as Eskom. The city is owing water. It is owing Eskom. How much is the city owing those different individual entities? I understand you can't give a collated figure at this stage because the numbers keep changing.
So what's important is not just the amount, but how long you've owed it. Eskom is in the area of 1.7 billion, where arrears about 3 months. Rand Water is just over 600 million in arrears for a shorter period of time. Now, we don't want to compare and say things aren't as bad, but there are municipalities that have owed much more money over many periods or longer periods of time. The point is, we don't want Tshwane to be in that territory. We want to be candid about the extent of the money that we owe, about the things that we're doing on the inside to improve our own revenue collection ability, to improve our cash flow, to respond to the findings of the Auditor General. And I think it's important that the public know about it. So we're not in denial. we are also, I don't think, in a crisis, but we're in a critical condition. And what I hope to convey today was the steps that we're taking from the inside out, not blaming anyone, not finger pointing. We do owe the money. We're not running away from our creditors. And we want to give the public the assurance that we are making changes in order to put ourselves in a better financial position.
How did Tshwane get to this point, a critical point, as you say?
So there are a number of issues. Many of them have affected all municipalities, but some have affected Tshwane more than most. As I said in my State of the City address, I referred to the 18% salary increase that was granted outside of collective bargaining. That had a significant effect on our finances. The COVID lockdown had a disastrous effect on all municipal finances, but in Tshwane, that coincided with the municipality being placed under administration and the council being dissolved for a period of 7 months. So no supervision over revenue management, supply chain management, the money that was spent, the appointment that were made for a period of 7 months. Before administration, Tshwane had a budget surplus of just over 200 million. Post-administration, we had a budget deficit of 4.3 billion rand. So that's significant. There are other issues. Eskom load shedding. It depletes our repairs and maintenance budgets as load shedding causes higher wear and tear on infrastructure, but it also affects our ability to sell electricity. So you purchase from Eskom so you can supply your customers at high demand, but if there's load shedding at high peak demand periods, you forego that revenue. Yeah. So these are critical factors, but I'm not excluding the mistakes that have been made by the political leadership of the city. We've got to be honest about that. We've got to be far more rigorous in exercising oversight over the financial management of the city.
The political issues did seem quite apparent at your State of Address a couple of weeks ago. It did seem quite apparent. The EFF were emphatically opposed to your mayorship as well as the ANC. You also spoke about some of the in-house challenges that have been problematic and not assisted you guys in being able to resolve this. Just quickly, before we wrap up, what are you doing to resolve those issues, and how are you going to try and build bridges with the different political parties?
So as for the State of the City address, I made it in comparative silence. It wasn't disrupted by anybody. I know there was criticism, but it was in a very orderly way. 155 councillors supported the budget for the present financial year. That includes the ANC. I've got a fair relationship with the opposition, regular meetings. You've got to keep in mind there are two parties in Tshwane that have ward councillors, the DA and the ANC. It wouldn't make sense for a mayor of either one of those parties not to talk to the other party, because the ward councillors are at the receiving end of the frustration of communities about poor service delivery. As for the internal things, there are resistance. Of course, there are people benefiting from things staying the same, and if you disrupt that, like any economy, there's going to be a fight back. We're determined to carry through those changes, whatever the fight back.
All right, thanks so much, Cilliers Brink. We'll leave it there. Mayor of Tshwane talking about the city of Tshwane not being in a crisis, but being in a critical state financially. And he's touched on some of the issues that they're dealing with in trying to resolve and get a firm handle on the financial issues of the city here. Nzinga.
Nozintombi, Miya, getting us the answers. Thanks so much for that.